Welcome back, everyone. Every single day, we see the establishment in this country continue relentlessly their campaign of condescension and hate against President Trump and his supporters. Nothing, literally nothing, not the facts about economic success or foreign policy success or even legislation they actually support, like the First Step Act, will convince them that there is anything good about this president. He's an outsider, so they hate him and will do anything to evict him from the Oval Office. But Victor Davis Hanson, the author of the brilliant book, The Case for Trump, thinks that an outsider is exactly what America needs. And he joins us now. So great to see you. I loved your book. And I want to ask you a question to start with, because when I heard the title, and I started diving into the book, I thought, well, we know The Case for Trump. Many of us have been making it for years. Tell us why you thought you needed to make the case all over again.
Well, I mean, I think we've lost historical perspective that we've never had a president. It was just a crazy idea without either political or military experience. And we've never had a Republican field with 16 candidates of that caliber. And we've never had such asymmetrical odds with Hillary Clinton and the establishment, not just of her party, but it ended up with both parties almost, and a 3-to-1 funding. So this should have never happened according to traditional political calculus. And then once he was in there, the Republican never-Trumpers told us he would be liberal, that the Democrats said he would fail, and he didn't either. So I think we have to take a breath, and it's sort of an astonishing 3 years that we've been in. And I wanted to emphasize that by the title.
Yeah, that's great. Exactly, that historical perspective. That's what I certainly picked up when I was reading it. And it reminded me of exactly what you just said. What an incredible story that was, and how it's almost become taken for granted. But they do still really despise him, the never-Trumpers, the establishment. What do you think lies behind that real contempt that they show him?
Yeah, I mean, at the most basic, it's obviously he's an outsider and that he doesn't have the traditional credentials. The last few presidents have come from Harvard or Yale Law School or the business schools. And if Trump succeeds without that resume, then it's a commentary on the people who failed with it. That's one thing. And then he doesn't need them. He doesn't consult them. He doesn't call in the wise men of Washington or New York or ex-presidents. He just barrels ahead. And the analytics on unemployment, GDP, energy production, traditional constructionist judges, oversees the restoration of deterrence. It's all in a good trajectory, and I think the Republicans, especially the never-Trump people, think this cannot happen because we haven't been advising him. We're not going into the Oval Office on a regular basis. He's not reading our op-eds. He's not listening to our commentary on television or whatever. So that's a frightening thing, his success, because it's a referendum on the status quo.
That is so smart, by the way. I think you absolutely nailed it. It's the vanity of these people. They can't believe that they're there now on the outside. One last question. What do you think what do you think that the president should and his team should do differently in thinking about making the case all over again for 2020, looking at how they've performed? What would be your points of criticism and where they need perhaps some correction?
Well, I mean, he doesn't exist in a vacuum. So just as he pointed out the liabilities of Hillary Clinton, he's got a record now, so he's got to stress the economics, and put that in ethical terms, that his policies, whatever you think of his commentaries, have changed the lives of dozens of millions of people who have jobs and have leverage over employers and higher wages, and that's a moral act. And then the second thing he's going to say is, this is not the Democratic Party that we've known for 70 years. This is near infanticide, reparations, open borders, sanctuary cities, 16-year-old vote, new Green Deal, wealth tax, and I'm the only person really standing between you and a whole socialist agenda. And that's going to be a powerful argument, I think, along with his record, in a way that was not true even of 2016.
Victor, thank you so much. I think that is so smart. I just want to emphasize to everyone watching who may be perhaps already persuaded, they feel they don't need to read a book called The Case for Trump because they already believe it. Please read Victor's book. It is absolutely brilliant, puts it all in historical context, and I really enjoyed it. I know you will too. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's see what Charlie and Emily have to say about all that. Emily, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think it doesn't surprise me, the insider versus outsider perspective and approach, because it kind of seems to follow along party lines, right? We have 75% of Democrats lately have said that they really value highly someone with that political experience. But with political experience.
They want the, okay, yes. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
And what's so fascinating about that is that it runs counter to our assumption, which is, well, how is that reconciled with the need and the call for that fresh perspective or the new or formerly marginalized representation of the population that they're trying so hard to have represent? It doesn't make sense. But I feel like when you drill down, it does, in that the answer from the left to everything is government overreach, increased ownership, and increased regulation. So, of course, they would trust more government experience with that. But those of us who fall more to the right on the spectrum don't want that. It's refreshing to have someone from the outside coming in, because that's someone we can trust who has that real-world experience to know that regulation and overreach only stymies economic growth, only stymies us trying to live within our constitutional rights and whatnot. So to me, it makes a little bit of sense.
So, Charlie, the thing I loved about that conversation was the point about the kind of the snobbishness of especially the Never Trumpers. You know, they're not being asked around anymore for their advice.
To the cocktail party.
It's so true. I think that is absolutely at the heart of it. They just look down their nose.
My favorite line is the wise men of Washington. How brilliant was that? Look, here's the question that 2020 should be about. Is America in a better place today than it was the day before Donald Trump got elected? And an objective analysis, of course. Lowest ever black unemployment, lowest ever Asian unemployment, lowest ever Hispanic unemployment. ISIS is destroyed. The GDP numbers are historic. The economy is totally booming. Wages are going up. Deregulation, as you mentioned, at historic levels.
Can I just interrupt? We say the wages going up thing a lot, but there's something that everyone needs to really understand, which is it's not just that they're going up across the board. If you get behind the average and look at where wages are increasing by sort of each 10% of the earnings distribution, it's the bottom, it's the people at the bottom whose wages are going up faster than everyone else.
Which is the people that came out to vote for Donald Trump for the first time.
He said he would help.
That's exactly right. And he has done everything he possibly can to fulfill every promise he made on the campaign trail. Never before have we seen a president be so focused to make sure he was going to do what he said he was going to do. And Victor Davis Hanson makes a brilliant historical analysis and argument that maybe the elites for the last 60 years, 70 years, 100 years have been getting it wrong.
Yes, that's why they can't stand him, because he's showing them up.
He's showing them up
for their
rather
failure.
Brilliantly in every single vertical.
I know. And the other thing that strikes me about that conversation is that so much of the contempt for President Trump, I think, it actually reveals the intellectual shallowness of the people who criticize him, because it's all about style, not substance. They're literally not interested in any of these facts. You know, we keep being told facts matter. Well, not when it comes to President Trump. They don't like the way he tweets. They don't like, you know, what he looks like. They don't like the fact he eats McDonald's. They're literally not interested in the substance. It's purely the style.
There is a complete failure to appreciate all of the details and all of the developments when you have made a decision to feel a certain way about a certain person. And here we're seeing that with the president. So I wholeheartedly agree. We were talking about that earlier today, that there are so many complicated issues that face us today, and that are also real-world issues, kitchen table issues, that because those on the left decry the president and they have vilified him, there's an inability to even meet in the middle or even discuss whatever strides he's made in those different issues. And frankly, it's all to our detriment, because right now what I see is those on the Hill, they're just doing the same fighting. Those representatives are doing the same, hiding behind that, well, I've done my line in the sand and that's it. We're seeing it with the Mueller report. You know, there's so many things that
All right. Well, great conversation. We got to leave it there for the moment.